Hello and welcome to the Gavin Davis Limited vlog. I wanted to talk a bit today about a personal passion project I've been working on. It's easy for me to say, apparently not. I've been working on this JavaScript game for a heck of long, and here's some screenshots of the development process of it from, you have to see it in motion really, so let's do a little video. This is one of the latest builds. I've been working on and off on this game since March 2024, and every few months I pick it up again, I tinker with it a bit, I put it down. You know how life is when you're busy with family and work and mixed martial arts and church and everything else I do. So I'd written this game with no dependencies in raw JavaScript, just straight old school JavaScript. This is also the game that introduced me to using AI in development, and I got it to help me write a 12-line depth scaler. And then I was really sad for ages because I got so disillusioned and disheartened that this skill I'd spent years on was now not redundant per se, but not special anymore. And I've done videos on my channel about that, so I'll not labour on that. But recently I've picked it up again. The sprite in the middle is one of my toy cars from when I was a kid. My mate John's been photographing some of them, so we're looking to put them in the game. So that was a bit of fun. But returning to this, so in December when I picked it up again, I was working on it, but hadn't picked it up since August the year before. So total stack dump, as my colleague Mark often says. I'd slept too many times since then. I couldn't really remember much of the context of the state and what was where and all that kind of stuff. So it looks like big refactor time, right? Make the code more understandable, more obvious, because when you're just working on a personal passion project, sometimes you're like, oh, I try to work at a high standard, but no one's ever going to be working on this but me, so I can just do it however I reckon. But, future Gav didn't remember everything past Gav remembered. So I started a refactor, and I love JavaScript, but it has a lot of weaknesses. Most critically, it doesn't have type safety, so there is a whole class of bugs that can exist that wouldn't exist if I had types. So I hadn't really even used modules. I hadn't done anything. I just raw JavaScript, import it in. Actually, I'll show you how I did it. So what I did is I had all my files in a single folder. I had some dev versions of some of them for like my local dev build, which weren't included in the main build. And then that all got just munged together, simple string concatenation with some linsing and unit tests and a bit of minification into a sports mode JS, which is about, 30k JavaScript. It's like nothing. It's not a great deal. So that's what I'd used. It's the sort of thing that you might have used in like 2009. It's not that I don't know much about modern JavaScript technologies. I even wrote a book on build tools about 11 years ago now. But it was quite an old school way. And there's nothing wrong with that. It worked and it was very simple. It's very easy to debug. And I could hack into the dev console and change things on the fly. And that was really, really powerful. But I was gaining there. I was losing in the comprehensibility. I didn't have things like enums. I didn't, didn't have proper. It wasn't proper. So I look at TypeScript. So my mate Warren Seymour, best dev I've ever worked with, hands down. He's been banging on about TypeScript for decades. It seems a very long time. Because you get static typing, you get improved tooling. You can build a bigger code base. It's a nice safe refactor because you've got that reasoning about the code. Because what TypeScript gives you is type safety to a degree. And you can, all the modern JavaScript features are supported. And you can also gradually use it because you don't need to like convert everything in your code base at once. You can start sprinkling some TypeScript in file by file. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So you can go as a hybrid. Put another way, the darker pink box is the potential error space of JavaScript, and TypeScript has in my view, a smaller error space of things that can go wrong and mistakes I can make. I'm trying to proof my code bases against my own capacity for failure to a degree, even though this is just a personal project. But these things overlap, right? So you can still make a whole lot of errors, and there are some errors you can make in TypeScript that you can't in JavaScript. So the first thing I did was a bit of a tool-assisted speedrun, appropriate enough for a game about going fast, and I used OpenAI's Codex for the first cut. Got it to generate some merge requests, 5 of them, I think, and I liked 4 of them. The convert engine to TypeScript modules didn't really go that well, but it showed me enough that I could do it by hand. I would say I did 85% of the writing by hand because I want to get hands-on and I enjoy that like refactoring process. After all, this is something I'm doing for fun. This isn't something I'm doing to do it as quickly as possible or impress anybody. This is just like for learning. And if I don't ever get my hands on it, if I just step back and let the agent write everything, well, I don't know if it's done a good job really, and I'm not really learning the language. I'm just going, well, that works or that doesn't work. No, that's not good enough. As a professional, even on personal projects, if you're going to learn something, learn it, you know? So that's what I did. And what it does now is, instead of just munging a bunch of scripts together, there's actually a compiler in the middle. So that's the secret sauce I wanted. I wanted to go, hey, Gav, you've tried to use this object here, but it's not that shape. So you can think, I think of TypeScript types like, the old baby sorters, when you maddeningly watch your child try to put the star through the square for months, and then suddenly they get it. It's a bit like that. It's a bit like that for grown-ups and computer people and that. So yeah, I found that really, really useful, is that I can't use something in the wrong place now. And then that exposed some bugs which were quite subtle, boundary conditions, and some things that just work by almost sheer fortune, really. So I dug into that and fixed so much stuff in the code base and made it a lot easier to work with. I introduced a few dependencies. I was already using ESLint, which is checks for a lot of problems. So you can get quite a lot of the way towards TypeScript style behavior by annotating and doing like backflips like that. But I wanted to go all in. But yeah, the ESLint plugins I'm using to push myself towards a more functional style of programming and detect just common things that are known to be silly. I remember watching a talk from John Carmack maybe 15 years ago now, and he was like, just turn on all the recommendations and obey all of them. I mean, I think that's probably the best way to go with most of these things. There are exceptions where there's a reason to go against the tooling, but those are rarer than you might think. So I've got HTML validation, I've got linting, I've got Jasmine for unit tests, and at the bottom there I've got TypeScript. And that is all I'm using. There's nothing, I'm using no dependencies. It's all dev time dependencies. So what are the pros and cons of JavaScript, TypeScript? Well, everything I mentioned before, really. And I just like types, and I can reason about my code now. I can say, well, I know that this piece of data is this shape. I'm not just like duck typing everything and going, well, if it's got these fields, I don't have to go, does it have this field? Does it have that field? Does it definitely? And be absolutely sure that I've got all these checks right every single time. No, I can just say it's got to be of this type, or if your name's not down, you're not coming in. The only downside I've found really is that I can't hack the code at runtime. So every time I change the code, it updates the little dev server, and the dev server refreshes my browser for me. I mean, that's great. But what I really liked doing before is tinkering with values in the console. Like, I've got constants files that I would tinker, like the length of the horizon and things like that, steering rate, and I could tinker all this stuff at runtime without having to expose it in any particular way. I could just hack in, and because everything was top level, there was no modules, I could just hack in and modify stuff at runtime. With TypeScript, you're at a bit of a remove. Now, I understand there are ways of doing that. There are ways of getting in there, but I've not got that far with it yet. But I really miss that. I really miss that just speed of hands-on. I'm messing around with stuff in the dev console. I'm refining stuff that way. I really miss that. That's the only thing. I would say the code quality is better. I have introduced some bugs, but a lot of that is just because it's been a massive refactor of the rendering engine. I'm not really much of a maths guy. I'm not a complete dullard, but maths isn't really my strongest suit, shall we say. So the road ahead, well, I didn't write that slide particularly well. But yeah, so the road ahead is basically that I'm just going to keep grinding on this. I'm just going to keep hacking around on it, keep enjoying myself. And I think what I do as a professional at the moment is an operability engineer. I do write code, but it's not written for fun. And I think I need to be reminded what got me into this, which is 1984, sat on my dad's lap, writing a game with him. And, as much as that's family bonding and everything like that, and I do the same with my kids. My kids now write their own games in Scratch. It's very, very, very impressive. They're smart. It's really sweet to watch. But yeah, it's just to have fun with it, and maybe I release this one day, maybe I don't. But TypeScript definitely is something I'll be adopting with my personal projects. I've tended to use Python for a lot of stuff recently because that's what I've used at work a lot. But it's really good just to force yourself into another space and not let the tooling take over. Tooling support, tooling assist, but if you actually want to learn something and actually get to grips with it and really feel that it's part of your DNA now, that's when you've really learned the skill, isn't it? So I really hope you found this video interesting. There's a lot of videos about the development sports mode on my personal YouTube channel, but these videos aren't necessarily about my current areas of expertise, but areas of growth. And if you found this interesting, please do feel free to have a look around at the other videos on my channel. All the best.